The Land Run's one of the largest freestanding sculptures in the country. I mean, there's always something else coming out that's bigger, so you can't say it's the biggest, but it is one of the largest pieces.
I've never heard nor seen of any piece of this scope and magnitude in the United States, and I believe it is one of the largest actually in the world in terms of size and amount of work.
Breathtaking, bigger than I thought, a lot of detail, the hoof prints in the concrete, the horse coming over the water. I mean, it's just unique to the spot. It gives you goosebumps just looking at it.
The Land Run Monument in Oklahoma City commemorates the 1889 opening of unassigned lands in Oklahoma Territory. The installation is comprised of 45 separate sculptures, each one 50% larger than life. The work is stunning to see in person, but to observe its creation is overwhelming. One of America's premier bronze sculptors took on the task. His name, Paul Moore.
Yeah, I think by the time I get this torso in right, filled in down here, it'll be really a nice look. When you look at a sculpture, you know, no one has an idea of what it takes to get that out.
Moore was 43 years old when he started work on the Land Run Monument. Today, he's 59. His two grown sons, Ryan and Todd, who were just boys when this work began, help him.
All right, let me get the lats in here first, and then I can shift it around. I see what you're saying, right in. Yeah. Right in this, actually. No, I think it's above that. Well, but it starts here, down here first. We have about 2 more years of sculpting to do on it. So we're almost wrapped up on the Land Run project. Hey, Ryan, stand over here and look at this. We'll have number 41 out of 45 wrapped up by, we're shooting for the end of January. And then we hope to get 2 out this next year and 2 the following year. Oh, right here. Right, yeah. Okay. And then we'll have all the sculpting done. We just have to get the installation finished on 2020, and that'll put us right on schedule.
A lifetime of experience prepared Moore for this piece de resistance.
Well, I guess I started really sculpting in high school. Did a little sculpting there, but I really had no idea what I was doing. And when I was 19, I ran into a book called Bronzes of the American West. And I started looking through that probably early to mid 70s when I got started. And at that time, almost all the figurative sculpture and paintings were almost obsolete. You know, OU had closed down their figurative sculpture program in 1969.
The young sculptor would have to find his own way.
Got into it actually professionally, quit the engineering job when I was 20 and started sculpting at that time. I started working in foundries because I wanted to learn everything I could about how to cast a bronze. I ran an enlarging studio at Shadoni Foundry there in Santa Fe for 7 years, and so I did over 120 enlargements for other artists during that time. So because of the knowledge and the experience that I got from that episode in my life, I've been able to do all of my monumental work by myself.
While he worked at the foundries, Moore never neglected his own art. He was driven, working 14 to 16 hours a day, 7 days a week on commissions. Where most artists do 30 commissions in their lifetime, Moore has done 150. And from the start, he was fearless in his pursuit of work. That's how he ended up with a sculpture in the Smithsonian's permanent collection.
Chuck Jones had set up a gallery there in Santa Fe, and he had an opening. And he was one of my heroes from when I was a kid, doing all the great Warner Brothers cartoon characters. He did a tremendous amount of them. And so I came up with the idea of doing a portrait of Chuck and seeing if he'd be interested in posing for me. And I had the idea of doing all of his cartoon characters
creating him, because they created him as much as he created them. I was in my early 30s at the time I did his portrait, which later the Smithsonian's National Portrait Gallery took on into their collection, and Warner Brothers also has a couple castings in their collection. So, you know, if you aren't creative enough, you know, you miss a lot of opportunities. I'm going to have to sculpt this slightly differently up, since you're going to be looking up on this than what I normally would.
His heroes were his teachers, and they all pushed him to excel through books.
I started collecting art books and reading, you know, as much as I could about, especially about American sculptors. This started out with people like Remington and Russell, but it you know, expanded out into other artists like Malvina Hoffman and Daniel Chester French and Augustus St. Gaudens and Joe Davidson, and I could go on and on and on about the great American sculptors, who I think are some of the best artists in the history of sculpture.
Thanks to his upbringing in rural Oklahoma, along with his family's Native American roots, Moore was enamored with the American West.
I've seen him sculpt what we call a maquette, or, you know, a smaller figure, 16 inches tall, like starting a workday here, and in 8 hours from nothing, he had a piece that looked like a finished piece for like 95% of artists that we have coming through the shop.
Jake Jerkovac's work with Deep in the Heart Foundry in Texas puts him in close contact with the nation's best sculptors.
We do work for about 160 artists. Most of them are in the United States, but some are from China, Australia. Most of the work we do is fine art, gallery work, or monument. People like Paul Moore, which we started casting for some years back here, is actually probably one of the most well-known artists that we actually cast for. We've done a number of monument pieces for him, and then also we've been doing a ton of gallery pieces for him. He's highly acclaimed. He's won a number of medals for the Prix de West and for the Cowboy Hall of Fame here in Oklahoma. He's a big name.
He's a big name to those in the world of American sculpture. He's won more awards than we think even he can count. He's represented by 3 galleries across the nation. His work is in museums. He's a member of the esteemed Cowboy Artists of America, and he has more monuments than just the Land Run. Despite all of his acclaim, you likely haven't heard of Paul Moore until now. It's okay, he's not offended. Moore is in good monumental company. Do you know who carved Mount Rushmore? It was a man named Goodson Borglum. How about the Lincoln Memorial? Well, that would be Daniel Chester French. Once Moore has completed the sculpture, the foundry comes to his studio to make rubber molds that they'll take back to the foundry in Texas. After a tedious and lengthy process, they return with a finished bronze statue.
Did you want to pull these off out here?
It took a full day to install this single statue, and Moore was on hand for every minute of work.
You can be the most talented artist in the world, but if you don't work and put it out there to where people can see what you can do, it doesn't matter. Matter of fact, someone with less skill level that works harder will make it before you'll find someone that's extremely talented that doesn't work. And so hard work is the key to all of it, and the dedication that you have to have.
Well, I think you got it about as good as it's going to get, the way this is set. So, why don't we go ahead and mark them?
Very few people will ever do a project like this in their lifetime. And, you know, we're very fortunate to be able to do it, even though it has been rough and, you know, tough on our bodies and, worn us down mentally even. You know, it's a great honor for any artist to be able to do it. And I just can't wait until we can get it wrapped up and finished.
I think Paul is an incredible artist. I mean, he's honestly, on top of being just interesting as all get up, as nice as all get up, he is by far one of the most talented artists I've ever seen or been around. And I've been around a lot.
Now I'm almost 60, and I think back on what I would have missed out on if I wouldn't have tried all these things. And it would have been a horrible life, you know. At least now I look at it and I think, my gosh, you know, I mean, I've had some wonderful life experiences. And, you know, I've only talked about a couple of small ones. And, you know, but it's been a lifetime of 40 years of fun, you know, and I've had a good time doing it.